this week spring has sprung. We've got through Easter and everything still feels a little bit chaotic. So today we want to step back a little bit, maybe get out of that whirlwind of global events, of AI conversations, although we'll probably talk a bit about those things too. We're gonna today talk about some economic forces, what we need to be thinking about in terms of those economic forces. And so that's kind of big macro chat, and then also some smaller stuff like our own little habits and how do we build our habits. So welcome and hi, Ollie.
How you doing, Becky? You okay?
I'm good. Yeah, like I said, I feel like I've actually had a really good couple of weeks because I sort of hibernated for a couple of weeks and it's allowed me to organize and take stock and step back, and yeah, it's been a fun couple of weeks.
Nice. Yeah, we were away last week for the Easter holidays. Went
Mhm.
away to the Lake District. We go every year and basically go completely off grid, which is so
Wow.
refreshing. So the cottage we stay in has got no TV, no Wi-Fi, no mobile signal. So literally unplugged from all technology,
Yeah.
playing board games, making fires with the kids outside, cooking, climbing mountains, fresh air. And then you come back to it and you're like, I want to do more of this, and like board games and reading books and less technology. But it's very easy then to come back and just get back into your old habits. So we're going to be talking a bit about habits later, but
Yeah.
it's a funny one, isn't it?
Well, and I think there's reality, right? Where you have to work, and perhaps we really like working as well, and work, the type of work we do certainly involves being very plugged in, and yet I think everyone often feels that way when you go away, when you take that space and you go, oh, I need to do this more often. So trying to figure out how to do it more often without just leaving your whole life behind, I think, is the hardest thing.
It is, isn't it? And making it more consistent. I think that's the key to everything, isn't it? Once you've built that consistency and you don't have to think about it and it's doing something on autopilot, I think that's when you start seeing the gains from it.
Yeah. Did you have any moments of epiphany on, walking on top of those hills on in the
Yeah, I
Lake
took a
District?
macro view and looked down on
Did
the
you?
world. No, nothing so grandiose. I think for me, it's I think distraction is a big problem. I
Mhm.
think particularly for founders when you're doing so many different types of things, wearing some different hats as a
Yeah.
business owner, um, eliminating distractions is one of the biggest things. So yeah, thinking about ways to do that practically, like pausing your inbox on your emails. I got one of those brick
Mhm.
things that kind of like blocks out some of the apps on your phone. But you still have to make it work. Technology can be an enabler,
Yeah.
but you still have to put it into action.
I'm actually working with a company at the moment that I need to introduce you to, and I won't go into too many details as to what they're doing, but
Cool.
it's essentially a family kind of it's a solution that helps a whole family get off the app and spend more time together. So
Cool.
it actually is kind of what you're describing actually in terms of, and it's making a habit. I mean, talking about we're going to talk about habits today, of doing something where you all put your phone down, you get rid of that distraction, and perhaps you get some rewards for like both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards for doing that. So yeah, like I said, I won't say anything else about what they're doing because they haven't fully launched it yet, but I should definitely introduce you to
Yeah,
them.
that'd
I
be
think
cool.
you'd be a good person to talk for
I
them to
think,
talk to, actually. Yeah.
yeah, I think like having, fun as a family and just playing board games. Like we were
Mhm.
playing with my son and daughter this card game that I used to play with my grandparents. And it's been around for donkey's years. And my son looked at the front cover and he's like, I'm not playing that. It looks really old. And literally, I was like, no, honestly, like I used to love this game when I was your age, and we started
Oh.
playing it. It's called What? It's a very simple kind of card game. And yeah, we've ordered it at home now. But I think sometimes you just forget the fact that you can take so much joy and pleasure in simple things in life.
Mhm.
And we do often try and overcomplicate things.
Yeah,
Don't we?
the distraction piece is one that I've been working on as well recently because I have an autoimmune condition. I get flare-ups, I get chronic fatigue. I was going to the hospital and like when somebody actually sits down and talks to you about, so talk to me about your day. And I'm like, I'm just, waking up exhausted every day, don't have the energy to do what I need to do. And then you talk them through your day. And of course, there's certain things that can't shift, and there's certain things like I said, I don't want to shift. I'm feeling very motivated at the moment. I have like work energy, even if my body's feeling fatigued at times, and kind of creative energy. And yet, one of the things that she then said to me was, "Well, what do you do in those kind of in between times when you're sat on the train or you're, walking somewhere or whatever that might be?"
On the
And
toilet, come on.
yeah, exactly, and it's like, you're probably on your phone,
Yeah.
doing things, and so I've been very, very conscious of trying to find some quiet in those moments, because the reality is otherwise it's, like, literally noise
Mm.
nonstop, for, I don't know, like 17, 18 hours a day probably, if you're yeah, depend well,
And I
yeah.
get the sense that because you feel like you should be doing so much, you always feel on the back foot and behind. And then you
Mm,
become a bit more unproductive because you just get overwhelmed by everything
mhm.
that you should be doing. But the reality is that you're still making progress, but you feel like you're not.
Yeah, and I think it is quite circumstantial whether you feel that way or not. And although I know we've talked to so many founders who, whatever stage they're at, they still feel like they're just trying to chase something, you're never getting there. I personally have definitely found that I, again, go through ebbs and flows, and it is a case of if everything's falling into place, I don't feel like I'm chasing everything anymore,
That's good.
but you still do feel like you need to keep up and
Mhm.
maintain what you're doing. So yeah, I go through different phases on that for sure, and for example, right now, I'm in a good place, and I was able to kind of establish what goes on in each day, and I know that I need free days to do things, and know that I need time in between the people time in order to find that quiet in that space, and actually trying not to hit that, like, totally saturated overstimulation, which is something that does happen for me, and that's something that, yeah, I'm really working on, and I feel like I'm getting there with that. We'll see. It might be easy to say that because 'cause it's been the Easter break and, everyone's been quiet,
But I think
but
that mindset of thinking, well, actually, I am making progress
mhm.
on it. And if I look back a couple of years and realize where my headspace was with it,
Yeah.
then actually that reflection on it as well, and building in that solitude and those in
Mhm.
between moments, as you say, I think it does help you.
Yeah.
Um, and it gives you that confidence that everything is moving in that right direction and you're not thrashing after things. Things are coming into you.
Yeah. And it gives you that ability to say no, or to say, "These are my boundaries around
I'd say
this," and
saying no is one of the
yeah.
biggest levers that you can pull,
Yeah.
like,
It's,
right away.
I've actually been forced to learn to say no the last few weeks, and I'm sure, many business owners will understand this, where you just have those conflicting priorities, and it's not even clear which one you committed to first, or those kind of diary things that go on. And for some reason, that seems to keep happening to me at the moment. And I've had to go back to people that I really didn't want to say no to, people that I really respect, things that I want to work on, things where I'm like, if I say no to this, am I going to miss out on future opportunities?
Mm,
And I've had to do it, and yet it hasn't been bad. It's actually been a conversation that's then opened up to new things. And so that's been quite a nice, like, little lesson as well, where I'm like, "Oh, those no's," which I was kind of forced to say rather than just saying no's to protect my boundaries, which
mm.
probably still not that great at doing that, especially if it's paid work.
But I think that's the point, isn't it? Like, if you've got that
yeah.
confidence in yourself and you've built up that muscle to say no, and you've realized that
Yeah.
actually things still come back around and that, in fact, everything normally happens for a reason
Mm.
anyway, then it gives you the confidence to do that more, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it kind of, there is something there about knowing your worth, knowing your value,
Yeah.
and that you still have that value. It's not just like predicated on that one interaction, that
Yeah.
one thing that you can or can't show up to. There's something more than that.
Yeah. There shouldn't be that constant need to over validate yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? And over validating yourself, I was actually telling Claude off for doing this earlier, where it was like, what do you want to get out of your check-in? Is it a long list of things that we've achieved together? I was like, no, like, why would I want that? I don't need my AI to be like over
Yeah,
validating
yeah,
itself. I'm bad enough at doing that. Like,
yeah.
I don't need AI to do that too. Yeah. I'm conscious that we talked about habits, and you
Yeah.
mentioned kind of wanting to talk a little bit more about habits. And was that prompted by being away and thinking about bad habits and kind of habits that have built up over time?
Yeah, I think it was that realization of, yeah, kind of embracing being present in the moment and
Mm.
having fun and not being so reliant on technology. So that was one factor. And the second one was the start of the week. In our paddle group, so paddlepreneurs, we basically did some group coaching, and that was really
Mm.
interesting. I got a lot more from that than just the paddle technical stuff. It was about sometimes you really have to go backwards to be able to go forwards. Like, people might think that I'm a paddle pro because I run a paddle group. Definitely not. Like, I'm still pretty much a beginner, but I've just brought people together around a core interest and having fun. So yeah, we had a group coaching session, and basically I realized there was lots of things that I was doing wrong. Like, I wasn't holding the paddle right, the grip was wrong, like not using the glass, not moving as a team, not holding the racket at the right point when I'm at the front of the net or the back of the net.
Mm.
So there was loads in it, but it just got me thinking about, it feels really uncomfortable physically gripping the paddle differently, and training that muscle memory to go, no, I know this doesn't feel right, but I just got to
Mm-hmm.
go with it and push
Yeah.
through that barrier.
Yeah.
And it just made me think about, yeah, how do we implement habits? I mean, there's a lot of science about saying that it takes, I don't know, 66 days or whatever. I often do try and like habit track stuff. So I was doing like Duolingo religiously for
Mm-hmm.
years, and I was close to my 1,000-day streak, and I ended up losing it. And I was like, I could be really annoyed about that. I was actually, well, I'm not annoyed because I built up that habit, and I don't need a bit of technology to tell
Yeah.
me, oh, you've lost that streak. Like, it was annoying, but I got over it. And naturally, the importance in the lesson is building up that thing where you don't think and it becomes
Yeah.
autopilot, and removing those barriers to whatever you want to do. So say if you want to go running in the morning, it's like
Mm-hmm.
putting your kit out the night before and just doing it.
Yeah.
So I think there's things that we can do to remove boundaries, start small, don't create too much of a big goal of it in the beginning if you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
build a new habit, and it should feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. What were you learning on Duolingo?
Spanish.
Ah,
Mm.
I can't speak any Spanish,
I
to be sorry.
thought you were going to come out and test me
I
then,
was
live
gonna,
and there. I was like,
yeah.
yeah,
Hola.
oh, yeah. Wow.
That's right. I'm
Yeah.
day one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually, I am. Oh no, I'm going to Italy next. So maybe I need to do a bit of Italian on Duolingo. Yeah, the habits thing. I think isn't it interesting as well that this is something that we've probably been doing in our lives for years, if not decades at this point, like building different workplace habits, and they come and they go, and this idea that we build up bad habits and then we kind of also try and build in new good habits. But life evolves and we evolve, and then you need to start establishing new habits as well. And I've definitely been thinking a lot about that. I've had a quite my routine has shifted a lot in the last year because I was doing so much gymnastics, and I'm not doing gymnastics at the moment. And that's been the total like rethink. But I needed that space
Mm.
in order to be able to establish new habits. Like I wasn't a you can't just keep putting things on
You
and putting
can't.
things on. And I know you can kind of habit stack and everything else, and there's always like little tweaks you can make. But the reality is, if you want to prioritize something and you want to build a new habit that's about prioritizing something that's important to you, then you do need some space in the beginning to at least to be able to make that thing happen.
It's so true. Like, you can't take on new capacity if you're not allowing
Yeah.
it for that space to grow and think. Like, bringing that back to a business context, like you could be on, say, 6 social media
Mhm.
platforms, and you kind of go, across all 6, but you're not going to be going deep into your niche or your expertise or your
Mhm.
domain if you're doing it, spreading yourself so thinly.
Yeah.
So it's about, like, yeah, in life, like whether you're talking about family, hobbies, gymnastics, whatever it is. Like, you can't have everything, and you've got to make those trade-offs. And
Yeah.
essentially, that's what strategy is. It's learning what to say no to,
Mhm.
and prioritizing.
Yeah, and it only becomes more important in this, like, crazy AI world that we now live in, because everything gets amplified, and I'm very interested in the idea of what good design looks like and how important that actually is, despite the fact that people are like, "Nah, you don't need design anymore 'cause AI, blah, blah, blah." It's not good at design still, like, I'm sure it is if it's got the right person doing things, but, um, being strategic and being able to go through a kinda design process and think about how you wanna design your life, like, that's
Mm,
your job.
yeah, yeah.
And then there are more tools that can help you implement that more quickly, and I've definitely found that working with Cowork, but actually more to set up systems and processes than to have it do everything for me. That's what I'm really finding at the moment. I just so that idea of help having something to help you establish a habit, but also having that process that's already existing, so there's kind of a framework to hold what it is that you're doing, I think is incredibly helpful. So then that's where I guess you need that headspace in the beginning, but actually you can be saving yourself an awful lot of time once you get going if you've got the right systems and processes in place.
I think it's about those systems and processes. I think definitely how, AI has helped me personally. I think
Mm,
I have to have a lot of kind of ideas or like saved documents or screenshots, and like I've got
mhm,
all this information that I want to do something with, but
mm,
then I just get overwhelmed because there's so much of it, and I'm like, when am I going to post that? What was that? What was that train of thought again?
yeah,
And actually, it has enabled me to organize and then actually go, well, that thing isn't relevant anymore. Delete it
mhm.
and reduce the amount of mental capacity that I've got in order to increase it. If that makes
Well,
sense.
and it's also that frustration, right? Of because I have the exact same thing where I was like, well, I've read or I'm constantly seeing things and going, oh, there's inspiration. That's a thing I want to do. Oh, I've got this idea about something. I want to create this, and it can't happen because like all of those things take bandwidth to actually do the creation side of it. Or even to do the processing and making that decision of like, yes, I'm going to run with this. I'm going to make something happen. So you then go, I'm not doing anything, but I've got all these ideas. And like, that's an incredibly frustrating thing. Like, I feel like holding ideas is something that takes up so much energy
Yeah.
and you're not letting them go. I don't know, like, but it's when you've got those things inside of you and you want it to sort of flow and it's not flowing, that can feel very, yeah, it's like you're holding this stagnant energy.
So,
And
do you think on that note then that AI is going to enable us to be more creative?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it helps me be more creative. I think it's taken moving more towards agentic AI versus like a chatbot.
Mhm.
And again, I guess we're just talking about LLMs at this point as well. And um, but it, but absolutely, like that's how I see it. And I think it's in each of our power to figure out how we use tools to do things we want in our life. And one of the reasons why we talk there's a lot of talk around AI doing creation, right? So there's in the Hollywood strikes, in the writers' strikes, a lot of that issue was we don't want AI to just write everything for us. And you can always see why there might be a productivity reason for AI to do some creation. But AI can't take away, like, it cannot
No,
do it, it cannot have those experiences for you.
no.
There is nothing better than having an idea and sitting down and creating and seeing something come to life.
Yeah.
And for me personally, things like writing or content creation, I'm like, that's my thing, that's my joy, that's my and when I work through things, if it's kind of writing a passage and trying to get some points across, going through that process of going from, "I don't know how I'm gonna articulate this," to, "Oh, I'm
S
actually
s
really like what I've
Yeah.
created here." That's n like, you need to have those experiences as a human, so I think we need to not leave those things behind, and we need to understand what it is to even feel that. Because I worry that for young people, I hope that schools are keeping, are a place where they continue to have that space, and hopefully lots of parents like you kind of taking them away, having that space away from devices means that they know what it means to go through that creative process and to have created something for themselves, and that the joy of that. I like, for me, I don't think there's much that matches that, to
There
be
isn't. It's
honest.
so fulfilling, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
that's what life
regardless
is.
of the
Yeah.
results or the
Yeah.
analytics from whatever you
Yeah.
do, like it's actually the process that
Exactly.
where all the value is, and then just the confidence you get
Mhm.
in yourself and how to
Yeah.
articulate yourself and have an opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's and to evolve your opinions
yeah,
and to kind of, yeah, if you don't ever express yourself, then you're always at that one place, right? Where you're kind of stuck on that one thought or that, but the second you express yourself and then somebody, I don't know, you see maybe something that counters that or something that adds to that or something, it's a dialogue of it, it's a discussion. And maybe there's an argument to say, well, this isn't about business or this isn't
no,
about work. And perhaps part of the, "Oh, AI can help us be more creative," well, I know certainly the premise, and if we're looking optimistically at it, is let it do more of the business, and I think for me, a lot of that is about organization and process and sticking you to that process so that you can then, like, have some more of that freedom to be creative.
yeah, I think it enables you to be more productive and actually
Mm,
ship stuff and get it out there to the world. I think that's ultimately the point,
yeah.
isn't it? And then you're being more creative because you're
Mhm.
doing more of the creative element of that entire process. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it is a great thing.
Yeah, and I think, there might be people out there going, "Why do we need more things out there?" Or "Why do" and but I've actually been kind of pushing this a little bit at the moment as well, because I think putting more things onto social platforms, and I've been questioning myself here as well. Like,
Mm,
why does a creative process have to end in something visible
mm,
and something public?
yeah.
I and part of me doesn't really know the deep answer why, but part of me also knows that for me personally,
Mhm.
that is part of the process.
Yeah.
And that's part of kind of that sharpening of what it is that you're doing. It's not necessarily about having a specific audience in mind even, but it's about kind of that knowing that it's out in the world and, yeah, that you're creating something that's out there.
And also, I think it's about the collaborative
Well,
piece that
exactly,
it
yeah.
brings, doesn't it? So, like, you
It's
put your ideas and thoughts out into the world, then you're
Mhm.
going to attract people who are interested in that subject or that way of
Yeah,
thinking. Then, they're going to add to that, and then it's going to build something better
yeah.
than the sum of its parts, right?
And this is where I think it's really necessary because, yes, there's a lot of slop out there. So
Hmm.
let's kind of get our voices back out there
Yeah.
again. And I'm saying back out there because I mean, I know some people have been creating constantly over whatever period of time, but I can remember back in, I don't know, 2012, 2014,
Hmm.
2015, whatever, where it really did feel like I was meeting people online, connecting with people. There were real conversations going on there. And I think we can rebuild our those little communities. Social
Mm,
media has tried to take us away from that because it just wants to show us all the ads and everything else. But
mm,
yeah, I've had an interesting experience on Substack where I was like, do we need to build a new social media platform? Like, what do we need to do? Do we need some kind of
mm,
sovereign UK one or something that's built by a different type of person, a non-profit social media? I don't know. Like, do we need something different that allows us to refine some of that community and
interesting.
connection? But actually, on Substack, what I'm feeling is there's a lot of what I would say early Twitter was like, which
Okay.
early Twitter had its issues too. But
Yeah.
like in my experience of it, that was where I was able to connect with new ideas and
Mm,
understand kind of a different way of thinking about things.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I am seeing some of that on Substack. So
Okay. I haven't
yeah.
actually experimented with Substack or particularly email
Mm,
newsletters, but I think it's an area that I do want to look into. I think for me, the platform that is my go-to is still LinkedIn. I
yeah.
think the fact that it's an underutilized platform, you only get sort of 3 to 5% of people posting on the platform.
Hmm.
The algorithms change massively. So 360 Brew now, which is LinkedIn's priority uh, algorithm. Essentially, it means that they're prioritizing. They can tell about AI slop and AI generated content, so they know content that actually has meaning that users dwell on and read and comment on, and they take that authenticity and it rewards it. So essentially, it's a platform where you've got lots of decision makers, not many people posting. And then, yeah, I think all of those factors make it a very exciting platform.
Yeah, and you're really strong on LinkedIn. I'm always like, how do I do what Ollie does on LinkedIn? Haven't got there yet.
Thank
I
you.
avoid
No,
LinkedIn.
yeah, no, it's yeah, it's an area that's always growing, but yeah, it's a channel that I love because it's got my people on it, essentially.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
where are your people? And that's really what social media was meant to be about. And heard Gary Vee saying that social media has turned into interest media now, which is true. And I think it depends on the platform, but it is essentially who's interested in the same thing that I'm interested in. That's what they're finding. And I guess things like YouTube really epitomize that because it's incredibly niche often, and so people are going to you for that one very, very niche thing because they're interested in it rather than necessarily kind of building a community. But I think there's still lots of space for that social media piece, and I am going to be on LinkedIn. I also realized I had to do a lot of work to sort of align what I speak about and to be confident speaking about in front of those decision makers. And yeah, align that with my work. And there's been a few things in my work that have allowed me to do that now. So
That's good.
you will see me on LinkedIn a little bit more. Right. So shall we? I mean, I was just there were a couple of things on that kind of co-work piece that I was just going to touch
So we're going
on.
to talk about AI brain a bit, weren't we, as well?
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe getting a bit overwhelmed with it. The example that I share is on this coaching session on Monday. I did a post on it on yesterday on LinkedIn, and one of the other founders kind of jokingly said, "Oh, I didn't have my note taker with me, so thanks for reiterating all that information." But sometimes you do get that over reliance on AI. And then you get into a space where you're maybe too comfortable. So I thought that was a kind of interesting point to bring
That's
up.
interesting. Yeah, because it's well, yeah, I again, like, I like to put it into workflows, and this is where I also do that distinguishing between the kind of chat versus the tasks and the agentic side of it. In terms of my own personal use around AI, but I certainly. You said to me the last time we were here, you were like, "Oh, I've been playing with Cowork," and then you were like, "Oh, I've been like,
I've
keep
got a bit
staying up. I'm a
obsessed.
bit
Yeah.
obsessed," and I kind of got to that place as well, and some of it for like good reason. Again, it's kind of like it's getting all of. I love things to be organized, so like all the systems organization stuff it can do, I'm like so obsessed with that.
Yeah.
And I can just see how my life's going to be so much better when it sorts everything out. But then also it's still a little bit shit, right? So there's also things where you get into these like spirals with it, and you're like, oh, I thought we'd be done with this now.
Yeah. I'm still going.
Yeah, and
I've actually said I want to go to bed now.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Can you just carry on?
I say stuff like, I've only got 13 more minutes to do. And it's like, and so I get like this frustration and I get this tiredness, and I was noticing a little bit last summer that I was starting to do this when I was using the chatbots for almost like a therapeutic thing or like that check-in thing. So I know that part of it doesn't really work for me. Like I'm not there to be chatting with a chatbot. What I'm looking for is what are
it's a goal or a task.
Specific tasks. Like I rebuilt my website.
Tell me about
and
that.
It was great. I mean, it's been an outstanding task for ages. I don't know if I've said on the podcast before or if I said to you before, I there was a time about this time last year when somebody else said to me, "Oh, I'm just building my new website." And it prompted me to have a look at my website. And it had been totally hacked and covered with there were a lot of Russian posts for things like I don't know, like Bitcoin investing stuff. There was like sex
wow.
worker adverts from
Yeah.
Germany on my blog post.
Jeez.
I was
How long do you think it was there for?
I don't know. It could have been years. So of course I dealt with that in that moment, but at the same time I was like, I know my website doesn't represent what I'm doing, who I am right now, what my work is. I could just take it down because do I even need a website? But I was like, well, let's just see if we can sort it out and get something that just feels good, feels representative, and is a tiny bit dynamic, but not not something I have to upkeep all of the time. Just maybe a few blogs every now and again to showcase some of the work I'm doing. So, tried it a couple of ways. Tried it going from scratch because one of my friends was like, oh, look, my brother just did this, and look at this website, and he's working on it in real time right now, and it took 10 minutes, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, what they were showing me wasn't actually a website, or it was like an HTML file that had been generated. It wasn't a live website. But I didn't realize that. And so I thought, oh, I'd just jump in and tell it to build me a website, tell it to ask me questions about what we need it to do. I already had a whole bunch of things. I had a ideal customer profile. I had my brand voice. I had lots of different things to do with the different areas of work. Yeah, I had about 10 documents. And then, but the reality is actually that all turned into a bit of a disaster. And I was really struggling to get it where I wanted it to go. So this is when I realized the whole stepping back and going, I'm going to go and talk to the chatbot to generate the HTML of what I want it to look like. So basically doing a prototype.
Yeah. So they ask you a question and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did that, generated this HTML prototype, and then went to Cowork and said, let's implement this. Also had issues with was trying to do it in Squarespace, decided to move back to WordPress because that was easier and everything else. So yeah. And
so it's now live?
It is now live. BeckySage.com. Let me know what you think. And I am really happy. And actually it's been, from a content perspective, it's been really helpful because actually it's created an anchor point for this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. It's made me more confident because obviously you're it's like that thing where you write a CV or you go in a job interview and you go, I've actually done a lot of good stuff, So
it's your shop window.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been, it has actually helped me with that. But yeah, it's also introduced me to the process of token maxing as I don't know if I could, somebody else has coined that for sure. That wasn't me that made that up, right?
Could have been.
Was it me?
Yeah.
Trademark token maxing. So yeah, starting to do a lot of why am I spending so many tokens right now? What's going on?
I've read a bit about, you should be basically not be uploading PDF files and basically putting it into a Google Doc and then exporting it as a markdown file and then uploading it that way. But then I'm like, is that worth my time? Am I going to get more ahead by what I'm doing? I don't know. Anyway, you can get down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's the main issue because I love to iterate and I love to iterate. As somebody working in teams, that's also how I like to work because I think it's a really great way of doing co-creation, bringing people with you, getting buy-in. It's very naturally how my brain works as well because it's let's start experiencing something and then tweak and iterate. But I think that also can be a little bit unhelpful if you don't do it properly because you're constantly going, well, let's just adapt as we go. And let's just add, I actually had amendments to various tasks on and I had 13 amendments. I'm like, what is this? The US Constitution? I'm like, so I was like, I don't think this is ideal because it then has to read all of that information, it's just processing more and more stuff. So, yeah, definitely still playing and work in progress, but yeah. Shall we step back?
Yeah.
Talking about some AI stuff. Because as we said, it's very easy to get excited and get sucked into it. But actually, you'd sent me a document from an event that you were going to go to, which was a Vistage Economic Forces event. And I thought this was really useful for us, in business, for business leaders, to be thinking about various things that are at play, have been at play. And it brought up 5 different areas. So the fact that there's projected to be slower growth in the UK, the fact that money is not as cheap as it used to be, and is probably not going to be as cheap as it used to be. AI productivity, obviously, as we've already discussed. Interesting labor scarcity as well. So we have all of this kind of these potential issues with AI causing job losses, but also then having labor scarcity, and the UK workforce is not growing. And what does that mean? And then also looking at kind of government type stuff. So how is policy going to change for people? How is taxing going to change? Is business going to need to hold up the economy? So there were all of these different kind of things that I was like, how much do we need to, or how much do you think we need to really be thinking about each of these things?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you need to
Mm,
know the direction of travel, what's happening at a macro level. But some of the stuff is obviously out of your hands. Like you can't
mm,
predict, wars that are
yeah,
happening, inflation that's gonna result as a result of that.
yeah,
You've got to be able to control what you've got to be able to control. So I
mhm,
think it is useful to have your pulse on the finger on the pulse about what's happening globally.
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, think about what you actually can control and can't control.
yeah. I agree. I think all of it just comes back to really like thinking about where is the true value creation. And as a business owner or as a leader, what is it? Where are you adding value? Who are you adding value to? How can you continue to add value? And what's that value exchange? Um, yeah, and of course, when money's tighter, that's harder. And if people can't, if the value isn't something that's like a desperate need for somebody, maybe they're not going to be paying for it. But that's the one thing that I feel like is almost a universal truth in business,
Mm,
and the only things that really break out of that universal truth is when there's, like, crazy market things going on within big business or in, if you've got, like, blitz scaling going on and king making going on in Silicon Valley, that kind of thing. But the reality is for the day-to-day businesses, who work in in their own communities, whether that be kind of geographic communities
mm.
or whatever, that value exchange is still really the core of it.
Yeah, you've got to be creating value, especially as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. And also, I think it makes sense to think about the elasticity of your product or service. So,
Mm.
you know, is it going to
Like
be
that.
reactive to changes to the global economy? If you're
Mhm.
building an inelastic product, which would be something that isn't affected by external factors, then it doesn't really matter so much. Like
Yeah.
there's always going to be a demand for it,
Yeah.
and it depends on your business model. Are you going for mass market and volume, or are you going for deep with a smaller number of people? Like it
Mhm.
really depends on your fundamental business
Absolutely,
model.
yeah, I mean, they're so different, and I was thinking even with Founded and Grounded, the type of businesses and we we interview such a wide spectrum of
We
founders
do
that it's such a
product,
good
services,
example,
yeah,
yeah,
industries.
of how actually those global forces are gonna impact each of those businesses in very different ways, and some of them are gonna ride it, but you can't just switch, like, if you are a buildings company, like, you can't suddenly become, like, a quantum computing company, right? Or you can't it doesn't work like that, and so there's also I think sometimes with the market forces conversations,
Mhm.
like you said, you can't necessarily do much within your own business, or you can't make those grand changes that need to be made.
Well, I think the smaller businesses, like under sort of 200 employees, are going to be
Mhm.
able to react more quickly, aren't they, to
Yep.
any opportunities that come up, particularly if they're founder-led businesses
Yep.
still and not, operating under that model of the leader at the top still has all of the shares or most of the shares in the company, because they can see that opportunity and they're a entrepreneur already for a reason, because they can spot a problem and come up with a solution, right?
Well, this is what all of this just points to for me is just the importance of everyone being entrepreneurial in the way they approach things. It's such an important skill. And I think that, if we can do anything about it, let's make sure that everyone's equipped with entrepreneurial skills as they come out of school, as they come out into this world. Because whether you're an employee, whether you're somebody who's running a business, you still need to be able to do that adaptation. And I think this piece about AI potentially taking jobs, but then there being job shortages elsewhere. That's also indicative of the fact that people are probably going to need to adapt and change.
Yeah.
And that's an entrepreneurial skill, right? So, and to be able to develop new skills and, like you said, spot opportunities. So, I think that for me, it almost, I think, is a good message of change for people who are already quite entrepreneurial or working in this
Or
space.
entrepreneurial, yeah,
Or,
as you
yeah,
say.
exactly.
And I think you said it really well earlier, was about that content creation piece you were alluding to, but you essentially said there's nothing more beautiful than having an idea in your head and
Mhm.
then putting that out into the world and making it a reality. And I think if we can empower more people to do that,
Yeah.
like, you don't have to be a genius by any stretch of the imagination. You just have to
Yeah.
see a problem that's worth solving, and be able to come up with a solution and follow through with it. There's
Yeah.
nothing, you know.
In fact, I would argue that maybe some of the geniuses actually struggle with some of that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes. Like,
So
having
true.
worked a lot across academia, that yeah, depends how you define genius,
Yeah,
but that's a whole other
conversation.
conversation. But yeah, it's exactly that. It's about kind of go-getting. It's about having agency. It's about having optimism. I think that that's important as an entrepreneurial skill.
Mhm.
Like, if you feel really pessimistic and you feel like you can't really make a difference in anything anyway, then it's really hard to act.
It is, and I think at heart, all entrepreneurs are generally
Mhm.
optimistic, but there's a really fine balance of being optimistic and maybe a bit deluded and not being
Mhm.
pragmatic and realistic. So there's definitely a balance that you need to strike there, and that's
Funnily
a hard
enough,
skill
that's
to
what
master.
my next Substack
There
article
we
is
go.
about. Well, it's about this whole reality distortion field piece. I think we mentioned it briefly last time after I met with Steve Blank, but um, yeah, the idea of kind of buying into your own reality distortion field and how much your own reality distortion field still has to have some connection to actual reality.
Yeah,
Like, yes, you need to be able to kind of create a new reality, but um not
it's
in
got
a
to have some
delusional
grounding to
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
way. Yeah, exactly. And so one thing I've realized is I think optimism's a choice.
Mm,
I think we can be really highly influenced to be pessimistic, actually. And
mm,
I sort of purposefully have had to have a word with myself a little bit because I've got a lot of work in the kind of tech ethics space, and you
mhm.
can hear a lot, every single day there's a new article about how tech, how social media, how, yeah, well, obviously we've also got the war going on and the technology involved in that, how you could be very pessimistic about
Yeah.
things, and like a lot of damage that's being done. And I, yeah,
How much of that do you think's in your own brain versus who you hang around with, what media you
I think it's
consume?
both.
Mm.
I think it infiltrates into your own brain,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But I think that and I think you have to sometimes make active choices
Mhm.
to say, "Oh, I'm gonna switch the way I'm thinking."
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes I feel like, "Oh, it's the responsible thing to do to buy into all, to be really aware of all the risks and everything else." And I think it is. I do believe in responsible innovation and entrepreneurship
Mhm.
and mindful innovation and entrepreneurship, but I think you can't lose that optimism. Like, I think you've got to believe that, okay, if we see something that is an issue. I
Mhm.
mean, in the news right now is the social media ban for under 16s, or
Yeah, in
the
Australia.
lack of
Yeah.
social media ban, and like the government speaking to all the tech companies. And I actually think, well, actually, we're in a really great position to be able to say we now know where the damage gets done.
Mm.
We can now see where things go wrong. And if you can see where things potentially go wrong, if you can see where the risks are, that puts you in a position to be able to
Can
make
you
it
course
better.
correct, do you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can mitigate against those things. And I am not like I my views have changed on some of the social media stuff over time, just because I have seen the data that comes out there. I don't think anything's worth risking young brains
Mm.
for, but I still think there's a lot of value in social media. It's just one example, obviously. And so let's be optimistic about, it's not necessarily about allowing all children to be on
No.
Instagram and getting damaged by that or anything like that, but Or what does it look like for them to be able to have access to information, to knowledge, to be able to learn how to like be part of a community and share things within a community, and and be creative and all of that kind of stuff. So that's I think that idea of having optimism but recognizing the risks, being mindful is a nice way forward.
Yeah, you definitely got to be balanced, haven't you?
Yeah. So that's probably a good place for us to wrap up today.
I think it is. Was your
yeah,
watch
I think
showing no
we're-
time at all then?
It's showing nothing. We've gone into a black hole.
We've created our own reality of time and space.
I don't know what's going on. But I think let's go with that, right? Mindful optimism. That's a good place to end.
Perfect.
And yeah, we'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks for tuning in.